I'm going to be talking about the behaviors that truly sabotage our relationships. If we can focus on these behaviors, it's going to make an enormous change in our lives. And these behaviors can be very subtle, they can be very extreme, but they are unconscious behaviors that we need to become more conscious that we may be doing, or to recognize that our partner may be doing and know how to deal with them better. So one of the biggest and most sabotaging behaviors, and I see this all the time in my therapy room, and all therapists will tell you this, I feel, is the behavior or the attitude, if you like, is the need to be right. The need to be right. Being right is a losing strategy, as Terrence Real, who came up with all of these sort of sabotaging behaviors, Terrence Real, he points out how this sabotages the relationship so powerfully because it completely negates the other person. And you know, that's the irony, I guess, and this is what we see in couples therapy. Couples therapy is about the couple. It's about two people, and it's about two people's perspectives. I think it's really hard for some of us in our relationships to recognize the way we see the world and the way we perceive things as they are going on around us is our perception only, and it is but one view. There would be many different views. If there were 10 people involved, there would be 10 different perspectives. There would be 10 different ways of interpreting and seeing something. But we fall into that trap, and this is where it's sabotaging, is that we think our way is the only way. And the way we see things, or the way we remember things, is the only way. And actually, we are so subjective in our thinking and our experience of life. And that goes through all our filters and all of our defenses and all of our insecurities. And then we arrive at something that we mistake as the truth. And it might be your truth, to use that language, but your partner will have their truth. And if it is different, it doesn't make it an untruth. It's kind of being right. We need to be careful. We need to be careful because there are a number of things that we can do with this. Is we can negate our partner, and when they are saying things to us or sharing their experience, or making requests or whatever, we come in with this commentary of opinions and why it's valid and why it's not, and why they shouldn't think that, or why, whatever. And so that is very dismissive. It can be dismissive, and it's very, very negating, but it's also quite disrespectful. So that's one way of kind of being right. The other ways are we become really critical. We become deeply critical in our view and our approach to our partner. And in our criticism of the other, in our sort of fault finding, the subtext of that is, I'm right and you are wrong. I correct you because I'm correct. So I get to say that, and I get to behave in that way. And that is deeply disheartening, to be on the receiving end of that. And what it can become, like all of these things, is that these can become habits. These become habits, and they just become a normalized part of your relationship and a normalized way of relating, to the point where you are just in this position and this is now just what you do. And we need to be careful about this, because particularly for our stronger individuals, this is a great strength that you bring to the relationship. Your ability to have a strong will, to perhaps be more assertive, to really have a voice, that's wonderful. And you can use that for good or ill. And in this being right stance, it's not going to help you. It's not going to be helpful. It's not helpful to be correcting someone, telling them what to do, being right and them being wrong. That is not going to help them, and it is not going to create goodwill and generosity of spirit in the relationship. So there really is something about letting go of this idea of being right. What does that even mean? How are we right in this world? How are we right in relationship? We can share our experience, of course we can, and we share our feelings, and that's absolutely right and healthy. But this idea that we are right and our partner is wrong, we need to be extremely careful about that. Because It really will create enormous distance in your relationship, and it is toxic. And as I say, this is a biggie. This is every couples therapist will tell you this. There's often one, sometimes even two members in the couple dynamic who are fixed in this position of being right. And let me tell you, that is as I say, it's a very sabotaging place. And you know, as couple therapists always say, do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship? You can't have both. So it's really something to be aware of. If your partner complains about you always having all the answers and always kind of, you know, being a bit of a smart ass and always being right and no one's ever, you know, right except you, etc., etc., like just take a moment and just think about really trying to shift that behavior and that attitude, because it is a block. And ask yourself, why am I blocking myself? Why am I creating this wall between me and the other person? Because that is what that behavior is doing. So if you're trying to get close to someone, being right is not a way of doing that. And then this leads me on to another one of the sabotaging, losing strategies, as Terry Real calls them, which is controlling your partner. So the being right is kind of a sort of specific thing. And part of that can be this thing of controlling your partner, because we can control our partners through our disapproval, through our very powerful non-verbal communication. What is that expression? It's kind of, we communicate all the times with our partner. And with our disapproval and with our stony silences and with our eye rolls and with our sighs, we are communicating powerfully with someone. And then what we're doing is we're creating an atmosphere of people walking on eggshells in the relationship. And we all know that is a nightmare. And we do not want that. We do not want that, because that is just keeping the anxiety ticking over in us, in both parties. There's this activated nervous system. We're in our trauma response. You guys know about that now. And we're operating from that place. So this sort of disapproval and kind of, you know, mood that is coming into the relationship, that's part of survival mode. That's not relaxed, you know, understanding, open, relating. That is survival relating. And it's, you know, it's possibly something that you grew up with. It's probably something that is recognizable to you. You were on the receiving end of that, perhaps growing up, or your parents were with each other, or you developed this as a way of communicating with the people around you, you know, through these silences or through these moods, through this energy that's kind of put out, that people can sense stuff in us, and then people start altering their behavior a little bit. They try to be more jokey, or they start being clumsy around us because we're so hyper vigilant on everything that they're going to do wrong. And it's kind of, we become inadvertently controlling. That is a misunderstood way of being controlled. Is, you know, I guess to a degree, like all of these things, always, we sometimes can do this. But if this is part of an ongoing thing that's happening in your relationship, and happens quite a lot, I really encourage you to look at these behaviors, because they are not going to help you. Obviously, you know, controlling our partner can be just being dictatorial, you know, telling people what to do, being super bossy. You know, that I guess is part of control. But I think that this more subtle control is more important to sort of tune into, because we are then very clearly kind of sending out the message to our partner, which is, you are not acceptable to me. I need you to be different. And until you are, I'm going to be withholding my love, and there's going to be this energy, and there's going to be this atmosphere, and it's going to feel really awkward. And I guess you can go down that road, and it's like, and I don't care if it's awkward. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. It's more important that you behave the exact way I need you to at all times. And then I'll be all relaxed and loving and nice with you. Okay, this is very conditional loving. So it's really something to just be aware of. You know, at the end of the day, of course, many of us are working on our things, and we want our partners to be developing and changing and getting better, and our relationships improving, and I wholeheartedly support that. But that's different to needing someone to be different as a human being. You know, we have to kind of walk this line and hold these two things in our hands, which is, yes, we're always working on ourselves and we're always working on our relationship, and we want it to be amazing and for that to be a priority. And we need to work on completely accepting ourselves and our partner as they are. Because this allows this to happen more. It's really, really powerful. But what we do is we can end up being so critical and fault-finding and sort of dissatisfied that we are then in this perennial place of lack of acceptance. And then we can stay stuck because we need to feel the love of this to put the effort and energy into that. So acceptance is really key. Yes, let's all keep working on ourselves, but we need to accept ourselves first and foremost. And we need to be giving our partner the message that we really accept them as they are. It is a tricky one. And then moving on to one that I think has really captured a lot of your imagination, which is the unbridled self-expression. This is a really, really sabotaging behavior. And I love the word unbridled. You know, Terry Real's really nailed it with that word. Yeah, we are like these horses that are just, we are completely uncontained. We're just madly doing stuff. We're just ranting, venting, saying whatever we damn well please because we are angry and the world's going to know about it, or we're hurt, so we're entitled to do this, etc., etc. And it's dangerous. It's really, really dangerous. And I guess that's it in its extreme. There's more of an everydayness to it as well, which is just a constant stream of complaints, criticism. We never miss an opportunity to make a smart comment or put our partner down. You know, that's also unbridled, unboundaried. It's like, where is the filter? Where's the respect? Where are the boundaries? They aren't there. It's like we're in this place where we're just, before we're perhaps even thinking it, it's just coming out of our mouth. We feel and we say it. We feel and we say it, and we sort of feel like, yeah, we are justified in doing that. And you can do that. You can absolutely do that. We can all do that, and we all fall into that trap. But we need to know the kind of damage that is. It's like, because on some level, underneath all the complaints and the unhappiness and all the ranting and the sort of upset is genuine hurt. Often a feeling of rejection or abandonment or, lack of importance. And how are we getting that addressed? By being so negative and being so unkind and relentless in our criticism or complaints with our partner. You know, I think that's where we have to sort of pause sometimes and just go, okay, hang on, maybe this feels kind of, satisfying for like 2.4 seconds on some level. But if I keep doing this, where is it likely to take me? Where is this road that I'm traveling on now? Where am I going to end up if I keep on down this road? Is my partner going to come in and go, oh, I love you so much, you're so wonderful, I want to do whatever I can to make things better, you're the best thing ever? Unlikely. What you could be inadvertently doing is creating more distance and more ill will in the relationship. And then that's what I see when by the time couples come to therapy, things are very touch and go. And there's a lot of ill will in the couple. There's a lot of pot shots. There's a lot of negativity and put downs, just going backwards and forwards, just as part of their relationship now. Please don't fall into that trap. Be really careful. Communicate what you need. Say what you need. Express your emotions. But do it in a way that is boundaried and is appropriate and is likely to create closeness and understanding. That is the best way to communicate. Okay, it's a big one. And for those of us who are quite hot-headed and whatever, we have to begin to think, okay, I have to rein myself in here. Really need to think about what I'm doing. And then that leads on to the next one, which is retaliation. And that can be part of the unbridled self-expression, actually, because if we're having some sort of conflict or some sort of disagreement or struggle in our relationship, or we feel hurt or slighted, it's a very primitive urge. We're just going to retaliate. We're just going to come in 10 times harder, probably. And that's where the damage lies, is that we are hurt, and the conversation perhaps is sort of speaking of some sensitive issues, but our retaliation, that sort of animal in us that kind of comes out, that really is going to sabotage the conversation, and it's going to do more harm than even what was initially being spoken about. The retaliation we need to be really, really careful of, because again, there's a sense of entitlement that I've been hurt, so I come at it. And often, you know, such a big part of couples work is learning how to repair. When there's been a disagreement, when there's been difficulty, the need to repair is great, because the couple needs to come back together and build their resilience from that. So repairing is a big part of building resilience and helping a couple cope with these kind of things better. And the thing with repairs are, sometimes part of repairs are obviously apologies. And what apologies often actually become about is, yes, there's a small one about the actual thing or the actual hurt, but it is often about the retaliation that has happened and can go back and forth between the couple. But the things that are said in the heat of the moment, the sort of the character assassinations, the cruelty, the unkindnesses, these are the things that actually people struggle to come back from, not the original thing. It's kind of when we're in that fight mode of trauma, we are going to go into a highly destructive state of mind. And now this is your relationship that is going to get potentially destroyed. So learning about this thing about the retaliation, and this is where I'm absolutely going to come in with all my self-soothing posts, is we need to be careful. We need to recognize when we're about to say something damaging and just take ourselves out of that situation. We've got to go, we've got to do our self-soothing, we've got to do our mindfulness, we've got to do our breathing, etc. But it's a retaliation that does a lot of the damage, and it isn't even real. It isn't even what's kind of happening. It's just us in our primitive brain reacting 10 times, 100 times more than the situation warrants. So it is something to really be aware of and sort of think about. And then finally, the last one of Terry Real's losing strategies, is, as he calls it, is withdrawing. When we withdraw from the relationship. And that's a little bit what I was saying with the controlling your partner a little bit, is that we withdraw. We withdraw into ourselves, and sometimes there's disapproval emanating from us. Sometimes we just are stone. You know, there's the other expression, stonewalling. We are just stone. We just go, and you're not going to get anything from me, and I am gone. And that is a powerful thing to happen in a relationship, because rejection is alive in every relationship. And these are ways that we reject each other all the time. We criticize someone, so that person will feel rejected, and then that person will withdraw. And so then the other person who criticized is going to feel rejected. And so it can kind of go round and around like this. But I guess the thing with withdrawing is sometimes we need to do that. There is a healthy version of that. I say, it's taking a time out. There is a healthy way of doing that, but there's something about the withdrawal that, for me, that I see with my clients is that it's a bit more of a fixed position. Actually, I think after a certain point in the relationship, there's just been too much upset, there's just been too much disagreement, and one or both partners do just withdraw into themselves, and they're not going to come out again until it's super safe to do so. So they're just remote, they're unreachable. It's kind of, we can't get anything from these people, and they're not going to give us anything because they're hurt and they're angry and everything else. And this then becomes a very typical and unhelpful dynamic. And often this can be the avoidant. The avoidant will withdraw, and the shutters will just come down, the walls will come up, and then that's it. It's kind of, they are gone until such a time they feel able to step back into the relationship. So it is a painful thing. But then the anxiously attached people equally can also withdraw. They will reach their limit, and then they're like, that's it, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And then they withdraw into themselves. And that is just unhelpful, because how are you going to increase connectedness if you are both, or one of you is completely withdrawn? So I guess the questions there are, what do you need to be open a little bit again? I think withdrawing it's the ultimate closing. We're closed. The door is shut to the other person. And it's a difficult thing to work on, but we generally want you to always be open to your partner. It's a lot of work to be remaining open to our partners. We are closing all the time. Every little irritation, every big argument, every letdown, every small grievance, part of us just closes. We just close to them. We just take our heart and we put it behind closed doors. And actually, a lot of the couples work and the way I work is breathing through the difficulty, breathing through the pain, and staying open. And somehow communicating that with your partner and sort of having that as part of your relationship, that you're not constantly having to retreat into separate camps all the time, that instead you can stay with someone and go, ow, that hurts. Part of me wants to just run out of this room. Oh my goodness, I really want to stay open, but that was tough, or whatever. And then we're in the sort of truth of it. Then we've got something to work with. So thinking about what can I do to help me not feel the need to withdraw? And again, the self-soothing, I hope, can come in and help with this. But if you can be just be aware of these 5 things: being right, controlling your partner, unbridled self-expression, retaliation, withdrawing. Be aware. Notice these things when they're happening in your relationship. They're going to happen. It's okay. But be aware. It's not helpful. It's kind of unhealthy. And there are different ways of dealing with things. Start experimenting with them. I will obviously share all of my ideas. But it's about recognizing this is unhealthy and this is going to sabotage what I want. So a little warning bell needs to go off in our heads when this is happening. Warning, warning, warning. Trauma brain, reactivity, I'm in it. Be careful. Self-soothe now. That's what we need to be focusing on in those moments. And then we can start doing different behaviors that are not sabotaging. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you recognize. Let me know what you're guilty of. And also let me know what you would like more information around. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.